Six-pack Lapadat. And we got Ashton. Ashton, we're getting closer and closer to the World Championships, and it's been 10 years since you've been at the World Championships. And the first time around, the only time around, you were a sub junior. You were in equipment. This is a whole nother ball game, my friend. And I've been saying for years that I have a dream you will be at the World Championships, USA across the chest, and we'll see you in the big show. And here we freaking are. And the World Championships is at an all-time high viewership. CBS, Eurosport, Olympic YouTube, Olympic Channel, Sheffield implications attached, World Games implications attached. This is the big one, man. For you to jump in, how are you feeling now that you're just weeks away?
Yeah. No, I mean, yesterday was 4 weeks out from the day that I'll be competing. So I'll be competing that the Friday of that week of the World Championships. Um, this is the healthiest I felt in several months. And fortunately, training has mostly been trending pretty positively. So I am fairly confident that I'll be able to put up a performance that nobody else in the 105s will be able to catch.
You were saying um, on your Instagram stories that you
Mhm.
feel as though you might be peaking early and you're trying to get your peak honed in. Obviously, you're going to be the favorite against Anatolii, despite Anatolii being a phenomenal lifter and the reigning world champ. So you're probably going to be okay regardless. But how was the peaking going? Maybe elaborate on what you would put in your Instagram stories.
Oh, well, certainly. So, basically, the last several blocks, I've sort of noticed a trend. We have, for quite a while, been training sort of in these 4 week microcycles, like blocks, right? And what I've noticed is while they were really effective throughout the first, few years, as of recently, especially after I've been healing from this previous, back injury and some other nagging things going on, I've noticed that I've been starting to actually peak a little bit faster. So I'll tend to feel at my peak strength and I'll feel phenomenal on the third week of the block. And then the fourth week, I'll feel, drained, a lot more lethargic, tired. And then the performance aspect just won't, necessarily be the same. I've noticed this trend for, I want to say the last 4 to 5 blocks now ish. I think one of the big reasons for that is because after we had to dramatically cut down the workload as I was injured and healing, and as I've been getting a lot better again, we've introduced heavier secondary day work. I've been deadlifting and squatting twice a week again, like relatively heavy. And so I think part of it is, kind of an adjustment period for my body. And I think another part of it is by the time we get to that fourth week, because we've added in all this other stuff in the last couple of blocks, kind of, I don't want to say suddenly, it's been kind of systematic, but at the same point in time, it's just generated so much fatigue throughout the block that that third week I'll feel phenomenal. That fourth week I'll just feel lethargic and kind of sluggish and tired. But with that said, I was still able to pretty much lift within the ranges that were, goals that I had set for the block. So it's not a total loss. Mondays, we'll see how deadlifts go. I'm pretty excited because those have finally been trending good again after I don't know how long they haven't been trending well. So I'm very excited for that too.
What kind of injuries were you facing or are you facing?
Well, at this point, I would say that I'm not really injured anymore. I would just more so say it's, slight back aches and pains. But I mean, there was a time frame, and granted, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I never really got any of these things checked out. I just kind of winged it until I got better, which may not be the wisest thing, but I can be a knucklehead sometimes. But yeah, I was having some really significant issues with I mean, my entire back. My upper back was in like agonizing pain for weeks. My lower back was in agonizing pain for weeks. It was difficult to walk around. It was difficult to, in the morning, to like actually put on my boots and like tie my boots and to do a lot of different activities. And then even when it came to lifting, there were days where I couldn't lift over like 225 just because my body would just like shut down. So I would just stop. It was very bizarre, not fun, but through a lot of, patience and problem solving and, good programming and training and working off of, you know, kind of sticking closer to percentages again in training, that's actually helped me substantially be able to recover as quickly as I have and to hit kind of bigger numbers again and still feel good while doing it. So that's kind of where the injury stuff came in. It really started honestly when I was competing with Bobb and Keenan, just before that too. And I was like, oh hell. So, but I mean, the meet went well, fortunately. I had to switch deadlift styles on the day to win the meet. And then after that, it was just kind of downhill for the next 3 to 4 months. And then since that point, it's been kind of coming back up again. So I'm starting to feel a lot better, training a little bit differently than I used to. Not as aggressive all the time, for sure.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up the big showdown with you, Bobb, and Keenan. First off, that wasn't that long ago, right? That was 2023. And here we are,
Ever.
2024. And already people are talking as though almost looking past you a little too much and like they forgot, right?
Yeah.
Um, why do you think that is? What is going on right now? There's a lot of hype on Bobb. There's talk about outliers and Bobb being an outlier, possibly as a 105, but you are a 105 and favorite to be the 105 world champion. And you and Bobb might have your clash again at 105 at Sheffield, which would be absolutely bonkers, must see TV if Bobb cuts back down. And he's saying he's pretty sure he's going to. So, a couple questions here. Why do you think people have forgotten? Is it recency bias or what's going on there in terms of that? Do you think you should be in that discussion for outliers?
Yeah, well, I think a part of it is going to be recency bias, right? I think that this kind of feels like a cop out answer, but it's true. I think that with social media now more than ever, even in the past several years, we've just been inundated with phenomenally talented lifters doing phenomenal things across weight classes, and my weight class included. Lots of new guys emerging, lots of hungry young men and kids emerging, that are just firing their eyes and just ready to try to conquer the world, right? And I mean, they see that with, Bob too, of course. And not to say that he's newer, but a spotlight has kind of been on him, and his training intensity and my training intensity are very different for a lot of reasons. But the top end strength when we actually get to competitions is usually pretty similar. And people don't understand that. I think another thing too is because his training intensity is generally higher than mine, people are going to be a lot more attracted to that on social media and stuff like that, which with me is fine. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's not so much about, increasing traffic due to my training intensity. It's about really winning. And that's what I care the most about. So if people exclude me because I don't, train balls to the walls, all the time, that's okay with me. And this whole outlier conversation too, that's really been interesting to me because, I mean, even if you defined outlier by statistics, right? If you say, three standard deviations, above the mean, I'm fairly certain if you went through each weight class, you took the mean performance, in kilograms, and you calculated what the standard deviations were, and then you looked at three standard deviations out from that, I can almost guarantee you that most weight classes would have more than one person that could be statistically considered an outlier. So the whole conversation about there being only three or four outliers in powerlifting to me is totally utter nonsense because mathematically it just doesn't check out.
It's an interesting conversation. Like this is Rondell who spurred it first. I know what he's trying to say in that, for instance, you have certain people that seem ahead, so far ahead in certain weight classes, and they're almost catching up to a weight class above. And for him, he was like, "Look, that's you. If you can't do that, then I don't consider you an outlier." But I do understand what you're saying. I had this conversation actually with Amanda Lawrence and Carlina, and Carlina was saying, "Look, I have other people in my weight class constantly who are neck and neck with me. But this would be kind of like you and Bobb, where it's like just because I have someone to my left who's neck and neck with me, what if doesn't mean I am now not an outlier because there's someone else?" Carlina was saying, "What if we're both outliers?" Because
Well,
Carlina,
right.
exactly to your point, she was like, "Me and Agatha are way ahead of the pack here. Me and Agatha are outliers. It's not I'm not one and she's not one because we have each other necessarily." So you raise a good point there.
Yeah, for example, if in a hypothetical world, let's say Bob Keenan and I all did 105 IPF World Championship, right? If you functionally look at that, the world record right now is what, 940 kilograms,
That's right.
give or take, right? So if you were to have three performances, and let's say we hit 950, 960, 970, right? All of them are well above, comfortably above, the IPF total world record. And even though one guy got 970, are the other two guys not outliers anymore? again, mathematically, if we were actually to break that down, that wouldn't it wouldn't pass the logical common sense test. But with that said, I do understand the allure of talking about, oh, well, there's this one guy, and he's just so far ahead that no one else can touch or catch him, and he's beating all the guys in the weight class above, right? And I've looked at this before. There were years where if I had competed at the IPF World Championship, I would have out totaled everyone in every weight class except Jesus. So it was like, okay, like, but eh, I mean, the whole conversation about outliers, I just kind of take with a grain of salt. Um, I mean, I know that mathematically there's a very formulaic way to do this. Um, for me personally, though, I mean, whether other people consider me an outlier or not, I don't care too much just because, again, my major concern is winning. So I want to win the world championship. I don't really care what I total there as long as I win. I'm not trying to set a PR total at Worlds. I'm not trying to do something crazy that's, just never been done in powerlifting before. But I want to win and I want to walk away from it healthy. And then I want to do shit that's never been done before at Sheffield in the World Games and win those.
What do you think an IPF world title does for your resume, for your legacy, and also for your reputation and credit you get within the powerlifting community globally?
I think
Globally, I think. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, the first thing that immediately comes to mind is, um, it's such an integral, I think, part of the legacy, and it solidifies my spot as one of the best drug tested powerlifters in history. It's just my opinion. If you can win an IPF World Championship title raw, and beat out all the other competition, show up and do the thing on the day, then you've solidified yourself in history in a way.
Yeah, I think to a large extent. I mean, I had Bob on, and people were even in the outlier conversation. Bob got interjected into that, but when the conversation was, "Who are the kings?" we're like, is there a big three, big four? Bob wasn't in the conversation, and Bob's like, "I think it's because I don't have an IPF world title, and people aren't viewing me like that." And it kind of helps to be like, "No, I'm in the conversation. I went to the IPF Worlds. I am a world champion. So you better
Mhm.
insert when you're talking about all the different kings and all the different weight classes. My name is next to 105, Ashton. So it's me you better be talking about when we're talking about kings and who's the most dominant in their weight classes." So yeah, I agree. I can't remember. Did we chat about when Anatolii gave the call out? I know I did with Marcellus. It gave a call out for you. What was your impression when Anatolii threw that out there? It was
Oh
like,
yeah.
I mean, that you're coming in with hype, and he can't back down. Marcellus was talking about, look at it, what's Anatolii supposed to do? It's going to happen. Ashton's coming. You might as well not back down. But Anatolii never fires shots, and for the first time did.
Yeah. Well, I think he's coming up against, a man that's stronger than himself, and he's probably trying to get into that person's head, that person being me. And fortunately, with me, the mind games don't really work. You know, I'm a psychologist. I do this for a living. But all jokes aside, yeah, no, I did see that. And, I respect Anatoly as a lifter. I think he's a phenomenal competitor. And he has done, tremendous things in the IPF World Championships in the past. So I'm definitely going to give credit where credit is due. I think he's a phenomenal lifter, and yes, would consider him an outlier. Given his strength level, the totals he's put up, and stuff like that. However, he did bring up in the video something about traveling, and I get it. Traveling can affect things, right? Is traveling going to drop your total 40, 50 kilos? Probably not. If you are I mean, if you have a reasonably good schedule, right? Like I competed in Korea, I was able to hit an all-time meet PR conventional deadlift, put up a big total there, and I wasn't even really fully peaked for that meet. When I went to Memphis and I beat Keenan and Bob, I drove 12 hours a couple of days before that meet to get there. So it's not like I'm not traveling or just competing in my backyard. It's really couldn't be further from the truth. I either take very, very long drives, and I'm notorious for that, or I, fly wherever I'm going and I get the job done. Same thing with Reno. I flew in there and, didn't underperform in any single lift and did everything I needed to do and had planned to do. And I anticipate that when I get to Lithuania, that it'll be the same exact story. And if that happens, then there's no way that Anatoly will be able to put up a big enough deadlift to match or beat the total that I'll put up.
Last
Unless he
time,
does something he's never done before.
yeah. Well, yeah, fair enough. He's also dealt with some injuries, though. When he was at
Yeah.
Sheffield, I mean, he had a solid performance. He's one deadlift away from actually breaking his world record. So he had a good performance given. But I remember asking him, like, "But you were injured?" And he's like, "I through Gustav, an interpreter. He's like, "Oh, I'm definitely still injured. I'm just going to try my best and see what happens." And he came one deadlift away from breaking his own world record. But I'm not. Have you been paying attention to his training? I haven't seen top end, but so I think he's probably around 940ish, but I don't think he's going to be able to push much past it because he's been dealing with issues. It looks
I
like.
would agree. I think past 940 would be a bit of a stretch. If he hit, I think 930 to 940, I think that would be a wonderful day for him. Like, and I mean, that would just show, despite injury and challenges, how sturdy and strong of a power lifter he is. Um, but with that said, I mean, even when I competed against Bob and Keenan, I wasn't healthy at that meet. The reason why I deadlifted sumo was because I had a back strain actively during the day, and I was trying to manage, pain while competing. And I hadn't even trained sumo going into that meet actually. And I had put up a 21, 30, 40 something total. So, to me, like I get the injury thing. It's definitely valid. But if you peak smart, if you really taper well, if you really temper your training going into the meet and your expectation, you can actually do something pretty good, sometimes. So I think he still has that potential to do something good, which is why I still take him very seriously as a competitor. Granted, I do think out of the two of us, I am objectively stronger than him. Yes. However, anything can happen at a meet, anything can happen at the World Championships, and I'm, preparing myself for those possibilities. So I'm taking it very, very seriously, and I'm training like I'm in third place.
You you one time came on the podcast and you were in a tight showdown coming into with it was Keenan and Bobb, and Bobb was getting all types of attention again. Keenan had popped up and arisen. He had a showdown with yourself in Korea, and it was all going to come to a head once again. And you came on the podcast and said, "This year, this time, I destroy everybody." And that was literally the tagline and soundbite I used to label the podcast because you were fired up, you were motivated. And at that point in time, there were some people looking past you, almost forgot. And I'm not sure why this happens, but it seems we're starting to tread down this path again. Is it motivating you to hear a guy like Bobb say, look at if Ashton, first off, I mean, he's saying Ashton might be exiting. And before he leaves, I need to get that one back. And he wants a showdown with you. And honestly, as a fan of powerlifting, who the hell wouldn't see that showdown again? It'd be amazing. And for it to be at Sheffield, you know how hype Sheffield is. And if he's a reigning champion by then, and you're a reigning champion by then, it'll be champion versus champion, two reigning champions head to head, roughly the same body weight. He'll probably go into the same body weight. That's amazing. You guys are both outliers. It'd be phenomenal. But how fired up would that get you to know once again, here we are all over again? What does
Well,
that do for your motivation?
I will certainly say that every time I, especially that national meet, there was really something different about that meet. But every time, anytime actually, I should say that Bob wants to, compete, to come down and to hang out wherever I'm hanging out, then he's always welcome to do that. And I encourage it and welcome it because it forces me to be the absolute best that I can. So I always get stronger as a result, and it's just strong people pushing strong people. So does it motivate me and does it fire me up? Absolutely. And if he does it at Sheffield, great. I wouldn't actually mind seeing it happen at the World Games too. If we both qualify, I would love to see him come down to, I think it's 93 to 105 heavyweight men. If
Yeah.
he could come in that mix, too, that would be cool with me as well. I mean, it would just make all of that stuff much more exciting for me. And it's true too. I don't know how many more years I'll be competing at this level, not because I think strength will be an issue. I can still get stronger. It's just a matter of my, professional obligations, personal obligations, things in my life that are changing. And I may very well transition to something else in a couple of years, but I mean, that's still to be determined too. So we'll see. But yes, if I could have another showdown with Bob and Keenan too, because I still view him with that same lens, then I would be 100% game for it. And if I could win twice, that would be even better.
Be huge. It'd be absolutely huge. And this time, it'll be after the IPF World Championships in at Sheffield, where I think to an extent when the USAPL split, not the whole world kept watching and the numbers dwindled and it didn't quite get the viewership it should have, especially a showdown like that. This happens at Sheffield, everybody, the entire community watches. We're talking 10 times the viewership USAPL Nats got. This would be, and by then you're both world champions. I mean, if you both get through, right? All respect to all the other contenders who are going to world champions. Certainly not looking
Of
past
course.
that. But
Yes.
yeah, it would be absolutely bonkers to see it happen. What is your impression also? You're on the US national team. This is one of the best national teams we've ever seen.
Certainly.
And the talk of the sweep. And when I say talk of, almost unofficial team captain, Jesus Oliveras. Like he's the super heavyweight on the team. He's the strongest powerlifter that ever lived, tested or untested. And he grabbed the microphone after U.S. Nationals had completed and the U.S. American team was set. And he was talking sweep. And ever since, everybody's looking at the roster and everybody's looking at the nominations. And there is a pathway. There is definitely a pathway. That applies a lot of pressure. I've talked about it on other podcasts. For instance, some people are like, look, I don't want too much attention, too much pressure drawn on me. It's one thing for if I swing, miss, I let myself down. It's a whole nother if you're telling me I swing, miss, I let down the whole team and I let down the country, etc. And by missing, we're talking silver, not even gold. Like that's a phenomenal achievement. And Jesus is really in a weight class where like he's got this. But there are some battles in 66s, you got a battle. And in 93s, you got a battle. Even the 105s, it's not exactly a cakewalk. How do you feel about A, the talk of a clean sweep, and B, your thoughts on actually achieving it?
Mhm. Yeah, I think really far out, I was, because I had been talking about this for a while. I think I was probably one of the first people to actually notice this. In my opinion, I'm biased, but I was like, well, if these certain individuals competed and we all kind of, a lot of people from, Team Craftsmanship came over and we all started competing, we could probably create a team. And I could see people realistically filling in every weight class where we could legitimately win every single weight class at a world championship. And, that possibility has come to fruition now, which is, going to be fascinating to see. And quite frankly, I think that there's a good chance, a good probability that could happen. Granted, there can't be a lot of mistakes, right? Because,
Right.
anybody in any one weight class can make a mistake and it slips. So there is added pressure there. But for me personally, I've always performed pretty well under pressure, under stress, under, like, hell, let's go back to September when I competed with Bob and Keenan. Everyone thought, or most people it seemed thought, Bob was going to walk away with this one. And, it was a pretty obvious answer, but that wasn't the case. And I realized that all those people thought that, but quite frankly, it just made me better. So on the day, especially. So, I really anticipate the same thing happening. I have a very unique ability, in my opinion, compared to other powerlifters, despite my professional obligations, that I have this ability to show up and to really do things when it matters and to win titles when it matters. And to me, that ability, having that kind of juggernaut ability is more important than just looking super strong in training all the time. So, does the added pressure get to me? I would say it again just further drives my motivation to prove, whoever thinks that I can't do something wrong.
Of the U.S. men's, and we're talking about the men's, a clean sweep. The women's will be extremely difficult. But, and that's like, I mean, you got like the 76s, which is Agatha, Carlina, Jessica, and then Crane. And, it'll be a battle to get onto the podium, but winning it'll be very difficult. But, and there's other weight like 52s with Evie Corrigan, etc. 47's Turbo Tiff. Look, I'm going to keep going on and on. The women's is really difficult, but the men's, you see pathways. Who do you think has the toughest go, the toughest battle that's going to really be give and take? In my estimation, 59s, I think Wasser's got this, although Ivan Campano from Spain is posting up some massive gym lifts. I mean, rivaling Wasker. Let's see what he could do. He's a junior world
Mhm.
champ. Let's see what he could do. In the 66s, though, Jonathan Garcia, who has the unofficial world record from PA Nats Nationals,
Mhm.
but he's got guys like Penna, Kyoto, Kasim San, who've all broken the world record. Penn hasn't broke the world record, but two-time world champion. That's an extremely tight division. And although Jonathan Garcia unofficially broke the world record, it's not like a massive spread. It's pretty freaking close to
It's
what
close.
these fellas.
Yeah. 66 and 93 I think are going to be the tightest races. Um, 93 is a really important one because if anyone makes a mistake or misses an attempt, they almost neuter their ability to win that meet. And same thing with the 66s, honestly. And Garcia is a bad man, but there are some other 66s that are, that are hanging in there that are going to push him, and he's going to have to also perform. And I mean, even in my case, I would even put myself in after them because it's like with the 105s, a lot of the 105s, the top 105s in the world recently haven't really been at their best, sort of health. I mean, that includes me, that includes Anatolii. I think that includes Emil too, even
Yeah.
because he has not looked his best in a very long time. And I love the guy, but I mean, it's an objective fact, right? If we look at performance record, um, with all of that said, I think those three classes will be the tightest. 93 or 66 will probably be the closest. Probably 93.
So by the time it gets to you, and here's the thing, I mean, by the time US gets to you, if they have gotten all gold medals, we're getting close, aren't we? We got past the two biggest battles, the two scariest battles, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't take your foot off the gas. It's one of those deals like, oh my God, the biggest 50-50 battles, the biggest flip your coin, choose a person type of battles have already passed. And if America gets past 66s and 93s and they get to you, now it's kind of just take it home. We're at the last leg from
Right.
you to Bob to Jesus. Although you know what Bob is saying, look at you cannot look past a guy like Tony Cliff. You can't look past like Bob
Right.
thinks that he's in a firefight. Bob's
Right.
totals
He
can
is.
be huge. If he tightens up and doesn't go too willy-nilly on his attempt
Mm-hmm.
selection will be key. Matt Gary's going to be there. Matt Gary very rarely fumbles the ball. But yeah, it's such a we have never seen it happen before. A clean sweep. If you
Yeah.
guys can pull this off, it's history. You guys are the 1992 dream team with Michael Jordan.
Right.
If you
Absolutely.
can
And
pull this off.
no doubt. And you know, if it gets to that point, everyone else is killing it. Everyone wins. It's my day. It's my turn to come up. I can guarantee you that in that kind of circumstance, I will not fail.
So it's there's no room to.
No.
You just it's too much on the line. You know, it's okay. Also, when you decided to come to the IPF, what was the major decisions on that? It seemed like everybody decided all at the same time, by the way. It's crazy,
Yeah.
but everybody
So
came over this year.
there's a few things that played into this, right? One reason with the USAPL, and I still love the USAPL. I don't have any personal vendetta or issues with the USAPL at all. But I will say I did not like how the Pro Series kind of ran the last couple of years. It started off strong and then it just kind of got, yeah, it wasn't great. Even nationals wasn't really great either. And then they started switching days. We would compete, and then I couldn't compete prime time, and we all had to compete in the. It was too much. I was like, this is not working out for me. So, and I didn't really care too much about formula either. I care more about winning titles, head-to-head confrontations that will make me a better lifter. I really could care less about formula. With that said, Sheffield's going to be kind of different and a big deal because there still are weight class battles within that meet, and there's a
Mhm.
lot more monetary gain sort of on the line. So that's a little bit different. But generally speaking, I don't care too much about formula, to be honest. I really care about winning now. I really care about titles, and just building legacy. So I want an IPF Open World Championship title. I will get an IPF World Championship title, and I want to win, the World Games, and I will win the World Games, and that's just sort of the way that I see it. And
I
that
mean,
was really
that's
my biggest motivator to get into the IPF. So USAPL Pro Series wasn't going the way it was going. I wanted an IPF title, and I wanted a shot at winning the World Games.
thing with the USAPL Pro Series. It wasn't easy to follow. People weren't following. It wasn't like, for instance, people aren't going to be paying attention to points, paying attention to like who's ahead, whatnot. Like it just wasn't going to happen like that. And with using formulas and whatnot, it isn't going to be as intriguing. You swap the formula
No.
out, you could rejig the entire rankings. Not every federation in every region uses the same formulas, so it's not overly apparent to the rest of the community. And once you start alienating yourself from the rest of the community is not big enough to water it down like that. When you were using a formula the rest of the world doesn't use, they don't know, like and it's based off, like performances are based off of that. It's like now the rest of the
Right.
world's like, I don't know, I don't even know how to view this.
And
and,
that's one of
and
the things I dislike about powerlifting at, writ large. It's like there's not a lot of good consistency, even within tested, even if we had completely excluded untested powerlifting, right? Even if we just look at tested powerlifting, there's not good consistency between all of the federations on rules, on regulations, on what formulas to use and things like that. And it just really makes comparing performances across, federations a lot more difficult, in my opinion. Um, but I've never really liked that. I even though we have different federations and different things, I get it. Things happen, but I just wish there was a bit more consistency with everything. That way we could compare easier. But the OCPL, they kind of gone their own way, and it's a bit more difficult, like you've alluded to compare performances in the Pro Series to performances in the IPF or performances in other federations.
it's easier to follow when it's win nationals, win worlds in Sheffield. Like that's a really easy, organic step by step by step.
Simple pipeline. Yeah.
A simple pipeline. The World Championships is an amalgamation of all the national championships. Sheffield is an amalgamation of all the World Championships. It's just a bing bang boom. It works so smoothly. It happened just organically, on the way up. And now we're starting to see more and more money meets that we'll see more and more duels, and we'll see where that goes. I'm kind of excited to see how that ends up. Do you see
Yeah.
yourself staying at 105? Like this is your home, right? You're not, I can't see you bulking up. Would you ever cut down? Or is this just, I am where I am now, and this is what I'm going to be until the end?
Yeah. If I weren't in the military and the IPF classes were a little different, I'd love to actually like completely fill out like 110. That would be a lot of fun. I know I would do really, really good in that weight class, especially with squat and bench. I'd probably squat a tremendous amount of weight. I've considered just staying 105 through the rest of my time in the IPF. I've also even considered doing 93. Because it would just, I mean, with my vocation, it would just go so well with that. Being at a lighter body weight and being able to do everything even easier than I can already do everything now. And still be really, really strong too. I mean, even when I was a 93, back when I was a lot younger, or when I was clustering around that body weight, I was putting up performances that, people now even still aren't really doing. So it's like, well, I mean, I could probably do either really well. Um, but that's a decision I'll kind of have to revisit in the next year or two, especially if I continue to compete beyond the World Games.
To become a multiple time world champion would be amazing. Not
Yeah,
very
in the
many
multiple
people
weight
can do that.
classes. Yeah,
And these are huge weight classes. Like the difference in weight classes in powerlifting is huge. So to be a two division world champion is crazy. And if you can retain your strength and cut down to 93, even if you lose some, you're going to be a monster 93. It's going to be a whole nother, it'll be like an Agatha Shitko, Evie Corrigan moment. So, I mean, that would be exciting to see. But first, I mean, obviously go through the 105s and do another
yep.
round of that and see all that through. But yeah, that would be, speaking of 93, actually, what's your impression of Jawon Garrison announcing, because he just broke Jesse Norris's record in the USAPL at 90 kilos, and
Yes.
announcing he will be coming all the way over to the IPF. He will be battling out, and a huge motivation for him was watching a 93 win Sheffield, and he was telling himself, I should be there. I can beat these guys.
Yeah. So I have mixed feelings about Jawon. Not anything personal, of course, but he's phenomenally strong. There is zero doubt about it. I mean, that man, he's an outlier. He's a real one,
Yeah.
right? Um, but it's difficult to follow what exactly he does. He kind of seems to bounce all over the place, and there's not a lot of consistency in his performances and meets and things like that. I would love to see it personally, and if he comes to 93, not only would I, fully extend that invitation. I mean, if he went 93 and if Russell went 93, I would consider going 93 for sure at that
Oh,
point.
dude,
100%.
he goes 93, Russ goes 93, and you say, hey guys, guess what? I'm going 93.
I would do it.
Amazing. I mean, that'd
I
be
would
amazing.
probably do it. Yeah. Yeah, that would be the only thing that could, because that would definitely be a huge driving factor for me. I love Bobb. I love competing with Bobb, but I haven't been able to compete against Russell. And I don't know how many more years I'll be doing this. I don't know if I ever get the chance. And I would love to compete with Russell. I respect him as a power lifter. I respect him as a competitive juggernaut. I've just always wanted to be able to just stack up against him and see if I could, if I could just beat him head to head on a day. It would be so cool to just experience that win or lose. I would love to do that at some point. So I really hope something like that could happen. And with Jawon in the mix too, it would just and Petrie, it would just be it'd be an extraordinary, I think. The best 93 lineup the world's ever seen. And that's hard to say. Because there have been some
Yeah.
phenomenal 93 lineups, but I think with us three in that mix too, I don't think there would ever be anything like that in terms of how competitive and close the weight classes and powerlifting like history. I don't think it's ever been that intense. I think the closest thing to that, and people will disagree with me on this, but in my opinion, I think the closest thing to that was, and I'm biased, myself, Bobb, and Keenan, because again, same thing that day. Even though that meet kind of went under the radar compared to other meets, any of us could have won that day. We were all putting up well over world record poundages. I mean,
Mm.
all three of us, and attempts missing, deadlifts changing. Like, it was just such a close, tight battle. I think that would kind of replicate that, but even on a bigger scale potentially, because it would force Gustav to be better. It would force Emil to be better. It would force, all the top 93s right now, Keiko, to be better than they've ever been. And to see if they could kind of hack it and hang with those dogs. Because I do think that in the 93s, the whole outlier conversation, I do agree that yes, that top total should be over 2,000 pounds now. There's no reason it shouldn't be. If I were still in it, it'd be over 2,000 pounds. That's the way that I view it. So again, if that happens, if those guys throw themselves in that mix, I will sure as shit probably jump into that too. Pardon my French.
I would love, yeah, if you and Bobb clash again at Sheffield, great. But we'd seen it then twice, and then by World Games, possibly a third time. You do need to shake things up. You got to keep things interesting. And
Yep.
my God, you go in 93. I mean, just in the US alone, between Keiko, Gavin, Petrie,
Oh,
Jawon,
and Gavin, can't forget him. He's a monster.
Gavin,
Right.
yeah, because he hit 895 as well. Yourself, and if Russ moves up, I mean, just the US American Nationals, what I just said was how many world champions? That's all the world titles and world records and everything that's coupled in with the American mix, let alone when you go to Worlds and you'll have guys like Gustav Hedlund waiting for you who won Sheffield, and Emil
Hmm.
Krastev, who's over 900 kilos now himself, and whoever
Right.
else is going to pop up globally. Yeah, man, the 93s, it's going to be all killers. How tough of a cut do you think it would be for you to make 93, though?
I would take the year to do it. I'm fairly confident I can do it and retain a good amount of strength. I wouldn't be hitting, my top level. I wouldn't be hitting like 1,000 kilos at 93. I could probably do it at 105 though in a year or two, but not at 93. But with that said, I would still try to push well beyond 2,000 pounds at 93, which, especially drug tested too, like that's a world class, total. So,
Mm.
and I think it's totally in the realm of possibility. The way that I see it, I was like, okay, when I was a boy, when I hit my first 900 kilo total in a competition, I was 207 pounds that day, right? I intentionally went up a weight class because back then I think the USAPL still had the same weight classes to mirror the IPF. So I
Mm.
tell myself, well, that day I probably was capable of right around 2,000 pounds. There's no reason that I can't go back down to that and do it again and do better, you know, than when I was a kid. my mind, I'm like, are you gonna let a kid beat you? No. So
Yeah. I still remember you emerging on the scene and Ellis McLean in your ear rallying you up. And there's a picture taken. You had your eyes
oh yeah.
closed. That's like it's etched in my memory. Certain photos, and it's been years now, but certain photos are like sketched in your head when you see them. And it's LS leaning in
I'm
and
posting
down
that
into
today.
your ear. What's that, sorry?
I'm posting that photo today. I love that photo. That's one
Dude,
of my favorite pictures. Yeah.
it's monumental because LS was, I mean, he had already won 2 world titles and he did what he did. And it was like a passing of the torch moment.
Right.
You were emerging. I think you were still a teenager, unless I'm rewriting history, or
I was like
19 or
19 or
20.
20. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was young.
And LS was like an older guy whom was passing the torch. And I think he felt it. I think he knew in his heart of heart, like, holy shit, this kid's he's gonna be the guy. He's gonna be the guy. And he was like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna stand in his way. I might as well rally behind him because he's coming. It's inevitable. And he was rallying you up. And you went out there and boom, like you just emerged in a major way there. And ever since, we've seen what happens. What was he telling you in that picture? What was he saying?
Oh gosh. I think he was telling me crazy stuff like don't let me beat you, don't let this he was saying crazy stuff. I can't even fully remember all the things because my mind was in such a crazy place at that moment. Like if the wrong person looked at me the wrong way, they would have been a dead man. Dead man. And that was 20 years. I had that fire too. Oh man. I had that aggression for sure, that raw aggression. Man, that was a hell of a day. That was probably with that's right up there for me with like that Bob Keenan meet. Like that's one of my favorite meets I've ever done, like ever won for sure. That's one of the ones that stands out in memory for sure because of how intense that moment was. And it was crazy because when he was standing behind me, hyping me up, I truly felt and believed, man, this man, who has gone and won world championships, who's the top dog right now, believes in me and believes in my ability to do this right now. So I'm gonna prove him right. And it was,
Yeah.
it was a great moment for sure. And I
What do
still
you think?
respect to this day, LS is, in my mind, one of those top dog guys that just was killing it.
What do you think is probably your favorite moment? Not necessarily like proudest, but your favorite moment that you relive. Doesn't have to be the biggest numbers or the biggest showdown, but a moment you're like, wow.
Oof. I think it might have been, it's hard. It's so hard. There's three that come to mind. It's when I won 10 years ago, IPF. And there was a really, really strong young Ukrainian man that I had went against, Alexander Rubets. I'll never forget the guy. He's was killing it in the 105s too, equipped for years. I mean, just a monster, still killing it. I remember standing on that podium, holding the flag here in the national anthem. That's up there. When I had finished my last deadlift in 21 nationals, I'm sorry, no, was this 20? This was 2017 nationals when I had first won my open title, and I was waiting for the white lights to come up after that third deadlift. That moment was kind of up there, and then of course,
That was another
um,
picture, actually. It's another really good
yeah,
picture,
there was another
actually.
picture of me looking up at the yeah.
That was that's another one. Yeah.
Yep. That one too. And then that third moment, of course, would be when I, went against Bob and Keenan, and I stood on the podium in first place, right next to Bob and Keenan. Those three, but like those stand out to me. Not even all the numbers, everything else was irrelevant on that day. Well, I won't say irrelevant, but the totals and stuff that I put up didn't matter too much as being in that moment did. So I think those three moments by far in memory, I still think about stood out the most to me and stuff that you'll never forget the feeling on the day of just of euphoria and pride and respect for your competitors. I mean, it was kind of a beautiful amalgamation of all those things.
It's funny how when we remember these battles and we remember these showdowns, if you're super into powerlifting, you're going to remember all the numbers. I remember a lot of numbers, but I'm like a powerlifting nerd. God knows Matt Gary probably knows every single attempt made, everything. But the vast majority of people, it's just they remember who won. They remember the seesaw back and forth. They remember that. And we often get caught up in the numbers, but it's literally just give us these tight, close battles where we don't know who's going to win. And
Right.
it comes right
Well,
down
it's
to the very
exciting.
last
It's a
deadlift.
toss up. Yeah, that's what I love. I love that. I love being in competitions where it's like that. Like when I first went against Keenan in Korea, right? I had no idea the man was going to do what he did that day.
Yeah.
So I immediately had to shift gears and go, oh, this is no longer a fun meet, a cake and like a walk in the park. And now I got to turn it on and get serious. That meet again is also one of the ones probably top five, but I mean, such a crazy moment, going against him at that meet. Um, yeah, I mean, the ones that stand out to me in memory the most are always the ones that are so close. The top three I gave you, for example, World Championship, I won by body weight. When I first won my open title and defeated LS, I won by body weight. When I beat Keenan and Bobb, I beat Bobb by I think about 8 kilos on the day. And my third deadlift was 2-1, so it was called. It was a bad lift, and they both missed their third, so it was incredibly close.
Mm.
Those are the ones that stand out to me the most in memory for sure.
I still think, remember when you were talking about when you went to Korea and it was like a friendly, come on over. We invite you over to Korea. We'll have a competition. And freaking Keenan's there, a quote unquote, some random Asian dude. And it's, it's, remember I was asking you, did they set you up? Did they know Keenan was, it's like,
I
what?
felt like they did.
You across the world. You're tired, multiple time zones. You're unpeaked. You're like, yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's just a fun meet. Don't worry about it. And they have this monster Keenan waiting for you. And you remember you saying when you got there, you were checked in, Wayne. You're in the warm up room, and you said before even the lifting began, you felt his vibe, the way he's
Oh gosh,
staring
yeah.
at you, the
The
way he's
energy
carrying stuff,
in
and you were
that
like,
room.
you were like, this is a battle. I don't even, you didn't even see what his squat was, and you're like, no, 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 no. This guy is not looking at me with adoration, like, oh wow, it's so cool Ashton's here, like other people probably were.
Oh,
He was looking at you like another alpha male lion stuck in the
yep.
same cage, and only one of you was supposed to be in that cage, and
That
he was in the zone.
yep.
And you were like, holy shit, I'm in a battle. And you
That
did
man
not
had
think you
fire in
were
his
going
eyes.
for about you. You thought this is a nice little exhibition. I get to see Korea. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
What happened there? Was that a setup? What do you think?
I was fooled. Yeah, for sure. Because they were like, "Oh, Keenan's competing at it. He's looking really strong lately." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, this is gonna be fun." And like you said, I saw the look in that man's eyes that day, and the look in his eyes wasn't, "I'm competing with Ashton." It was, "I'm gonna fucking crush this dude." And that was the look in his eyes. So I was like, "Nope, I have to shift gears right now. I'm not going to embarrass myself. Fly like all these thousands of miles to get here, embarrass myself. There's no way. I gotta turn it on." And yeah, that would definitely stand out too. That was a super super fun one. Um, because and again, when I'm put under pressure like that and I'm backed in the corner, I just do really well. I remember I crushed. I think we got to deadlifts. It was close. And after my second deadlift, I passed out. He got his third deadlift. People thought he was about to win. And so a flip, the flip switch, something just, in my entire body, something just went off. And I think my third deadlift at that meet, I did 843 conventional, and I just crushed it. Like more in the tank, everything, just absolutely crushed it, which is really rare for conventional and meets like at this strength level for me. But it was just one of those, and if it happens at IPF Worlds too, so be it. If I get back into that corner, that's okay with me because I know I trust in my body enough to be able to respond to it and to do something, put something together that's going to win it, and I'll walk out of it victorious. So the same thing might happen in Lithuania. I'm prepared for it. you know,
Do you think that that was a setup by the Koreans? Did they know that Keenan
I
was a monster?
partially.
Because
I think they
they
wanted to catch me off guard or surprise me. I mean, I
right.
don't think they were, like, oh, let's just get this guy to go beat Ashton and just the whole world. But I think it was kind of like he was a lot stronger than anyone had let on, and no one really said anything about it. And then
Yeah,
once I and,
no,
and then Tim let me see it for myself, and I was like, oh, okay.
it was like okay, so you were just on such a crazy streak, just on such a crazy roll, and you traveled, like 20 hours or something crazy, multiple time zones. And to a large part, the rest of the world was thinking, "Oh, you're going to have some fun over there. It's more exhibition style. You're going to have some fun, whatever."
Right.
And they fucking had Keenan waiting for you. And he was in his own backyard. And he knew you were coming and he knew exactly what he was biting off. And you had no idea. That's where I'm like, hey man, this was sneaky. They almost caught you lacking.
They
Almost
did.
caught you lacking. Thank God you were, imagine you were like slightly injured, a little unpeaked, but you're like,
Oh,
oh,
it would have
whatever.
been
It's for
over.
fun. It's just for fun, anyways. He would have had you. Like, thank
Yeah.
God it all worked out for you the way it did. But
If I didn't shift gears on the day in the moment, I would have got murdered.
huh, yeah,
that,
if you
that
started
man, he had
slow,
a, huh?
if you started slow
Oh
and
yeah, no,
you didn't realize until squats was over, like, holy shit, he squatted what? Like, if
that
you
man
if
brought
you were
heat.
just like, let's just cruise, let's not get injured, let's just be okay here. And you didn't realize until it was too late. And you're like, oh my God, what do I need to bench and deadlift to catch up? Holy smokes. Like it could have. And how peaked were you for this? How mint
I,
condition were you
I
for this?
wasn't I wasn't that peaked. My body felt pretty good on the day actually, but I was like
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. But I have a way again. I think this is where I think a lot of people don't understand this. I have like this ability to show up somewhere, and if I need to kick into that gear, I can kick into that gear 9 out of 10 times and do something stupid. So that's what I did on that day. I think that's a
Immediately.
skill
Yeah.
too. Yeah, that I think a lot of top level lifters don't necessarily have that skill, but I certainly do have it, whatever it is.
It's okay. So in powerlifting, because it's strength, some people, it gets overlooked, but we have seen this before. You've done it in several battles where you're either the underdog and you come out on top anyways, or the infamous South Korea setup, if you will, where it's like, oh my God, Ashton,
Hmm.
I think they almost caught you lacking, but you put your foot on the
Yeah,
gas, like, no, I'm not. Yes,
right
you
on the
caught me
day.
lacking, but no, I'm not taking it now. Yeah, I'll find a way. And so
Yep.
we've seen it with yourself, and we see it with guys like Penna, who routinely is not the favorite to win. He's coming in nominated fourth. All these guys have posted up bigger totals, everything. And you would have to be like a Penna fanboy to be like, I'm picking Penna to win. And he fucking wins. It's like it's true where
Yep.
some guys just, yeah, yeah, they will sort
There's
it
a
out.
skill there. Yeah, there's a skill there just to be able to just turn it on and just to win. Yeah, like that is so much different, I think, than just being the strongest guy. Being the strongest guy is helpful, but if on that day you can literally summon the will and the courage and you're strong enough, you might actually win.
Yeah.
Like if the other guy is off at all, you can just catch his ass. Like you can win. So it's a thing. I agree.
It, inspiration and motivation goes a long way, especially if it's relatively tight. Just keep it relatively tight and anything
Hmm.
can happen.
Yeah,
That's why
absolutely.
you got to, like, your attitude going into worlds is going to save you, where you're looking, I'm ready to fight if I got to fight. I'm the favorite. You are the stronger guy. I mean, numbers don't lie. But if you have to, and it turns into a dogfight, you've been in these before, and you
Hmm.
can put on your foot on the gas and get yourself out of trouble. And obviously, Matt Gary's going to be there. I think Marcellus is going to Lithuania, right? I'd be shocked if
Oh,
he
so
wasn't.
yeah, he will. He'll be there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you'll have your personal coach, you'll have U.S. national team coach. You're like, have a lot of people around you, so
Right, and
you'll be all
both
right.
are men that I trust and respect. So I think this even the chemistry of this year's team is just going to be very good for a lot of the competitors.
Yeah, I'm super excited, man. I can't wait for the ball to get rolling and see what the hell happens. I got to get a
I'm
picture of all
stoked.
you guys. I know, it's so crazy to think that all you guys are together now on the same team. I need a picture of all you guys together. It's like taking a picture of the freaking Avengers. It's gonna be
Right,
nuts.
this is going to be
If
a
you guys,
historic team.
yeah,
This will be a
that's for
historic
sure.
team.
Yeah, that's for sure. In terms of like rivalries make up sports and shape our sports and shape our history. We don't know what's about to happen in the future. You've mentioned a couple showdowns that might happen for you that would be absolutely phenomenal, and maybe one of them emerges as the rival you recall the most. But up until this point, up until now, who do you think is your number one rival?
Oh, Bob. Bob. Yeah, Bob for sure. Because that guy, he's a hard man to beat. I mean, I've like won some big show, like I won, but gosh, it just took so much out of me to win that. And Bob had the advantage after nationals because he could just, maintain or gain weight, whereas I had to lose weight and I had to, train for PT. I was like very, very immersed in my work life. Like things just got crazy for me. But yeah, that meet took I think more out of me than almost any other meet that I've done that I walked away from. Like that took a lot out of me for sure, winning that one. He was probably my number one rival. Now, it could be close. Like if I can do 93 and Jawon and Russ and Petrie and Gustav and Emil and Gavin are all there and Kaiko, then that might be it too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the future too, but I would say up to this point, I would say Bob. And then of course when I was younger, like I said earlier, I always have to give credit to LS because that first title
Yeah.
completely changed the trajectory of how long I would wanted to stay in powerlifting, of how far I thought I could get. I mean, that one was so important. So I would say those two have been my biggest rivals to date. Keenan being honorable mention right there too. But if we do 93s, I don't know. We have to see. It might change.
The story around Keenan is amazing. Like for
It
you,
is.
when you're like 65 years old, having a beer, telling your grandkids about when you were a
I might have a
powerlifting
beer with
world.
Keenan at 65. We're pretty
Yeah,
good friends.
yeah. And you say like, I got a good story. Let me tell you about the time I went to South Korea. And then, a rival emerged. But yeah, for sure, the LS one's a good story as well. But in terms of who pushed you to like new heights and is going to continue to push you, because when you go to the gym, it's waiting for you. When you go every time, everything you do, Bob's waiting. Either it's
Yep.
negative or positive, whatever you're doing, Bob is what's waiting for you. That's going to push you to another level. It has to.
It will. And it always does. Like every time it does. Nationals, it certainly did. And again, that one took so much out of me. But it's good if we do clash again at Sheffield. I'm confident I'll be prepared for that because I'll finally have the longest break between two meets that I've had, I think, in many years. So I'll actually be able to be fully healthy, just as strong as possible, walk into that one and just, win again.
What showdown at this Worlds are you most interested in watching yourself as a fan?
Oh, 93's by far. 93's by far. Yeah. That class is, and again, it's not even because to me, the 93 should be over 2,000 pounds now, right? 907.5. However, I understand that at high level meets, when everyone is neck and neck and it's really close, the total thing kind of honestly goes out the window. It's really just who has the best day and wins. And I love watching those close, tight battles a lot more than I like one guy putting on an exhibition and putting up a crazy total. To be honest, I, as a fan, enjoy watching that more, the competition between a bunch of dudes that any of them could take it, than the guy who comes in, he's super strong, exhibition. Okay, cool. I don't really care that much. Like, I want to see the head to head, like direct competition because the numbers change and people usually aren't always putting up as much as they possibly can in every single lift. And they try to be strategic and then people make mistakes. And then sometimes it's just totally unexpected who actually walks away the victor. So for me, as a fan, the 93s will be the most fun class to watch.
Oftentimes, when we do these preview shows, we try to quote unquote do the math. And this is where you hear people say, like, I did the math on this, but there is no math to do on these. We know this. You can't take somebody's top end and what you've seen and the way they're trending and peaking in their prep and just assume that's going to carry over onto the platform. It just doesn't work out like
It's
that.
not that simple, especially when
I
you're
know.
competing against guys that are right with you. It just doesn't work that way.
It never does. Well, I shouldn't say it never does, but it
It's
doesn't
unlikely.
happen
Yeah.
like that. It's just not the way it always works. And I Matt Gary was famously putting it in his book. You have any other day, 365 days of the year, you can pick any other day you want to hit a PR if you just want a PR. You got one day to be a world champion. I'm
Absolutely.
not worried about PRs. When he takes his troops out there, he's like, I want you to leave a world champion. I don't care if you hit a PR. And historically speaking, nobody else is going to either. They won't even know if that's your PR or not. They just know if you won the world
Oh,
championship, if you got a world title.
they'll remember who's standing on the podium,
Right,
who's in the first place position. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Did you see the Arnold UK where Dylan Sanchez, a 105,
Hmm.
attempted 411 kilos and got it past his freaking knees,
I
which is
did.
crazy.
I did. Yes. Very, very impressive lifter. And he's going to be at that meet too, right?
He's going to be at Worlds. He's
So that's what I was
coming.
saying. Like, even like, granted, I don't think he's going to hit like a 940, 950 yet, but I think he could get there. And I think at this meet, I think he could hit, very close to nine, if not right around that range, which would be for him, I think, a very big improvement compared to his previous total. I mean, even if he was just a little more conservative on depth, instead of 411, he's like, oh, I'll just do 400 today. And he
Right.
hits 400 and he squats, six. I mean, that's still a huge total for the 105s. I'm very excited to meet him. I've actually chatted with him a couple of times too. So I'm very excited to see him lift in person too and to see what his deadlifts look like on the day and see what I can learn from him.
It's in his position because he's further back and probably won't end up podiuming, might, but he wouldn't be a favorite anyways. He can go all in on something crazy
He could.
and do
Yeah.
some kind of freaking 411 loaded up. And if he hits it, talk of the town, buddy. That is insane. It's like Enahoro in the 83s. It would be absolutely monstrous and insane. And
Yep.
he's from Great Britain. And what is going on in Great Britain with these young lifters coming up? Like Ade, Omasakin from Britain. I'm probably butchering his last name. Forgive me. He goes by Inevitable. He had a down up on his third attempt on deadlift. Would have gave him 840. And so, I mean, he's right up there. Obviously, we got Nonzo in the 120s and Rondell, Bobb are like, I asked them, who are you worried about coming up in the 120s? They're like, man, Nonzo's 18, 19 years old already.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely murk. It's
Nonso.
crazy.
Lonzo is a strong, strong boy. I've
Yeah.
definitely been following his lifting very closely. Um, that boy is impressive. He's probably, I would say, in terms of just youth, he's probably one of the best talents in the world right now. That boy he's phenomenally strong. And to have the build that he does and at the body weight that he does at such a young age is definitely mind blowing. He's an incredibly impressive young man. I'm very excited to see what he does because a couple years from now, that boy might be hitting 1,000 at 120.
Yeah.
He looks like he probably will do it, or at least get close. I mean, I don't know, but I'm very excited to watch him.
He's definitely one of the prospects. Him, Hamza from Hungary. He had some attempt selection issues, I think, but the strength is phenomenal. And he isn't, we haven't seen his top end either. And he's also like 17, 18. Like there's a
Yeah,
couple teenagers who were on the come up.
that's
Britain
what I
in
was saying
particular,
earlier.
though. What's that? Sorry?
That's what I was saying earlier. These young boys that are coming in that are just they have, I mean, when I started powerlifting, like just even socially, just the access to like training knowledge, to equipment, like to everything was just not the same back then. Like people were not doing what a lot of these kids are doing. Even what I was doing back then was just unheard of. But like now, these kids have, gone to a whole other level with all this stuff. It's crazy to watch. I enjoy watching it though, because it's kind of like evolution in a way. And
Mm.
that's why I'm like, I'm confident that I can continue to get stronger, but my days, in powerlifting are definitely numbered compared to a lot of these young kids that are coming in and there might be a passing of the torch in a couple years from me to someone else, even in my weight class. But again, I'm very excited for this next generation of lifters. They look phenomenal.
What do you think? What do you attribute this to? This big, fast rising, and it seems to be a little more
Oh,
global.
yeah. So I talked with this. I talked about this with Johnny Candido a couple years back. I want to say like in 2021 or so, give or take. And I told him, I was like, well, look, even because that part I was on a rip at that point in time, right? I was like 24. I was crazy strong, 23, 24. I was totaling like 950 plus. I was under 220, just crazy stuff. And at that time, I was like, well, one of the things, and this goes back to statistics, mathematics, all the stuff I talked about earlier. I truly and genuinely believe that for a long time, a lot of the upper limits of human strength weren't in powerlifting yet. I think there were flashes of it. There were some people in the past that were phenomenal. Gene Bell, Ed Cohen, Kurt Kowalski. There were guys out there, Fred Hatfield, that were phenomenal lifters that a lot of kids today don't know about. That I used to watch when I was younger. Dan Green, for example, I used to watch Dan Green when I was a kid. Um, and but for the most part, I don't think the upper limits of human strength were in powerlifting. They were just in other sports. And I think because powerlifting has grown so much and the exposure has gotten out so much, especially in the last few years, especially since I want to say like 2017, that's when things really just started to turn a corner. Like when I had won my first open title, because I noticed after that, more and more kind of like really freakishly strong guys kept going into the sport year after year. And after like 2021, it just got really crazy. And now, you have more and more, I think, of the upper limits of human strength actually pouring into the sport and actually putting up crazy performances and breaking records. And I think it was really just sort of a matter of more of the true outliers of human strength actually entering the sport and actually training long enough to actually put up the numbers to beat all the records that exist. And it's starting to happen now. I mean, and we're starting people younger too. That's another thing. A lot of people are competing younger. They're getting very, very experienced younger. They know so much about coaching and programming and lifting at a much younger age now. And they're able to do that all the way through their teens, all the way through their 20s. I mean, in 10 years from now, who knows? I mean, the numbers that are here now look crazy, but I might very well just be a distant memory in 10 years from now. I don't know. But with that said, I really just think it's exposure, it's people starting younger, and it's more and more freaks and outliers actually entering the sport versus the past. I think that's just really what it is. More and more people are finding out about it and getting into it than ever.
Is the future more global, or will we see? Because right now, US is a dominant force in the
Ooh,
classic division.
I think we'll still be dominant.
Do
I'm
you think so?
biased. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
10
so.
years from now, can the rest of the world catch up? Because it'll expand more. Like some of these freaks we're talking about are in different nations, not US. US has got freaks
Yeah,
coming up as well, though.
it's hard to say. I don't think any team. I think the closest might be like England. I mean, most countries, honestly, they have some freaks, but they don't have a comprehensive, just a full team of just monsters head to toe like the US does. And even in the US, I would honestly say we probably still haven't even recruited from our best talent here in terms of athleticism and strength. Like, we might still have people here that just haven't gotten into powerlifting yet that might just absolutely destroy. Like Jawon, look at Jawon, for example. He's kind of here and there over time. But this guy's putting up stuff that's just never been done before. Like in
Mm.
that weight class, just phenomenal lifting. I mean, and I've seen guys, for example, I'm in the military. I've seen guys in the military that are built just like him that don't power lift but are just really strong. I think the depth of talent in the US, despite our population not being larger than every other country, I think that the depth of talent in the US is very, very deep. There's just a lot of guys here that are really, really strong
So
because
you think we
athleticism
still?
and strength is championed here, especially you look at football, American football, you look at things
Mm.
like that, wrestling, you got to be strong.
Sports in US is monstrous. It's one like sports is big all over the world. I get it, but you guys, even like high school football, high school wrestling, high school is huge. You guys can pack a stadium for national championships like that. Like
Oh, for
it's
sure.
so. Why is that? Why is America so into sports?
It's kind of hard to say. I think there's a lot of driving factors that play into this. I mean, I could give you the obvious answer, culture, right? I mean, we're a little bit more individualistic and there's just fierce competition and everything is competition, and that and
Mm.
that dwindles down to sports too. So people are just competitive as hell and they just want to win and they want to be the best. And they literally just want to, and I'm kind of like this too, admittedly, when I compete with people, my thought is, I'm going to steamroll these guys. I'm going to roll right over your ass if you get in my way, and I'm just going to keep going until I win. And that's how a lot of guys here, that are competitive, that's how they think. There's just a lot of, independent, individual, um, like you used the word alpha earlier, alpha-minded dudes, just that want to compete, that just want to be the best, and it makes it very interesting for sure. Sports. I mean, even when I was just to speak to some of the strength of some of these kids, when I played football, American football, I remember I was in like the 10th grade. Our entire offensive lineman, every single guy on that line, weighed over 250. All of them bench pressed over 300
Holy
pounds. We're all like in the 10th grade. Like it was crazy. Like just crazy strong dudes, just trucking people, just crushing them like crazy.
shit.
It's
Okay.
definitely a different ball game here. No pun intended.
Yeah, man. I mean, you see some of these football players, you see memes of guys going around. It's like this kid's 14 and he's crazy jacked and he's
Mm-hmm.
running like how fast he is, how powerful he is. It's crazy, the athleticism. And there is something
Ooh,
about America. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. There's actually a boy here. He's 17 years old. I think he's in Texas. He's like 17 or 18. This kid is strong. He was deadlifting like 765 or something,
Oh my
squatting in the
God.
sixes, benching over four. He's like 17. He was like I think a 220. This kid was crazy. He's
What?
another one to watch out for. Yeah, he's gonna be really good in the next couple of years if he keeps competing, which I think he probably will. He's gonna be someone that's gonna pop on the radar pretty soon here.
Yeah, there's US, even like in the market in business, US is like
Hmm.
uber competitive. It's just something
Competitive,
about the American nature.
right?
You guys scrap it out. Like the strong survive. And sky's the
Competition,
limit.
dominance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's something
It's
about it that's why you guys gravitate towards sports. And like in your school system, like sports, it goes hand in hand. Schooling and sports is hand in hand. From grade school to high school, right up into university, right through, it's hand in hand. And then when you get into business and you got a job, it's fierce, it's competitive,
it's
it's,
still competitive. Your whole life,
yeah,
it's like that here.
yeah,
Yeah.
your whole lives. It really,
Yeah.
really is. I think it is part of the culture, is why
Definitely.
America's like that.
Definitely part of the
But
culture.
it's interesting. Would you like to play the name game, sir?
Sure.
I got some names I'll toss at you. Um, one word, two words, a story, whatever the heck comes to mind, you go ahead.
All right.
But the first one, easy peasy lemon squeezy, Anatolii Novopismani.
I think silver would look good on him.
Well said. Well said. Les McLean.
Hmm. Change the trajectory of my competitive career.
Bob Matthews.
Most intense competitor.
Austin Perkins.
One of a kind.
Taylor Atwood.
Nice hair.
Jesus Oliveras.
Larger than life.
Jawon Garrison.
Might actually be competitive and win 93s.
And speaking of, Brennan Petrie.
Number one in my heart. For 93s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really
Well,
pull. I love the 93s. I love all of them, but I'm really pulling for him to win.
yeah. I mean, you guys are on the same team, like not only just coaching, but also like Team USA, like on a couple different fronts. Are you going to be sticking around watching this World Championships? Are you able to like get there relatively early and watch and stick around afterwards or
Yeah,
whatnot?
I'll get there probably fly into the country around Monday. I'll probably get in there Monday. I'll probably be watching the lifting Monday, Tuesday. I'll probably watch the 93s on Thursday as well, and then yeah, Friday do my thing.
Does it make you more at peace and easy when it comes time to lift if you've already been around it a little bit and you're kind of acclimatizing to the action, you got your feel of the platform, or because some people that helps, and some people
Yeah,
look at they want to embrace the moment, but it for some people it gets them too hyped up and too excited. It actually makes them like exhausts them. So
it's good for me. I generally I will temper how hyped I'll get while I'm watching some of the other performances. Um, but I definitely like to watch because I get to see the judging. I get to see the bar, the plates, the equipment, the spotters, the loaders, the handoffs. I get to see everything. So by the time I get to the meet, I know every single detail that I need to know within, a reasonable margin of error. And I know how to account for all of them in order to be the most successful I can be on the day.
it's more familiar. I mean, when you get there and it feels more familiar, you just focus on what you have to do as opposed to familiarizing yourself on the day. And
Right.
yeah, although it is, and like it's a part of history. Like you're actually there at the World Championships. You want to soak up the
Yeah,
atmosphere and
I want to
soak
see
in the event.
it. Why watch it on the screen when I can go downstairs and watch?
Right.
It's my
The
opinion.
only thing is, like, you don't want to get too hype, dump adrenaline. Like, it's tough because the 93s
Mhm.
is like the 93s is so good. It's gonna
It's
be
gonna be crazy to
so
watch.
good. And it's
It's
the
gonna be
day
crazy.
before. You gotta like not get too hype and yelling and hooting and hollering, and you gotta be able to sleep well that night. But at the same time, how you gonna miss that if you're in the same freaking building?
I can't. I got to at least either watch the squats or the deadlifts, at least minimum. I'll watch at least one of those.
Yeah, God, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be so good. And then after it's done, you could kick back and watch Bobb, watch Jesus, watch the 120s, the 120 pluses, not have to worry about and the women's side as well, and not have to
Yeah.
worry about expending energy and whatnot. But dude, hey,
Yep.
Lithuania is gonna be freaking bonkers.
It'll be a crazy meet. I can't wait for it. Crazy. Historic.
And then Sheffield after that. Holy freaking smokes! Everybody's
Yep.
gonna go crazy
If people thought the
when
last two
Sheffield.
were crazy, yeah, this one's going to be, especially if I'm in the mix, this one's going to be a lot nastier.
Oh, I mean, there's lifting left to go, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you think about some of these showdowns that might happen. If it's you and Bobb, Perk and Russ, and Perk and Russ won't even be direct. 70, the Perk will stay 74, Russ will stay 83, but they'll be relatively close.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we're gonna have battles all over. We have rivalries all over, anyways. Yeah, man, this Sheffield's gonna be absolutely bonkers. But this World Championships is gonna be pretty crazy.
Yep.
There's
We
there's
got to get
there's
through
gonna
this
be
one
fight.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get first things first. Well, listen, my man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I'm glad you were able to come in a stitch early. I have something that I gotta hop in on right now, so I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on as per usual, my dude. Stay safe. Hopefully, everything is smooth sailing right up until World Championships, and we will see you in Lithuania, my friend.
We'll see you in Lithuania, Ryan. Good to be on again.
And everybody listening, please do subscribe as per usual. Give us high ratings. And until next time. Six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.